NFL Inside Blitz, Week 12, with my cohorts, Ron and Ted. What say you guys? I hope you're having a better week than I am.
Well, I've had better weeks, to be honest with you. At least you sort of have a job. Hey, I'm looking forward to this week. There's really good matchups. We just got the word from the NFL on Joe Burrow, and he's done for the year, a torn ligament in his wrist. So we want to start with that. That was a game where I think we need to talk a little bit about injuries and what people deserve to know going into a game. I know there's already been a class action lawsuit today from Barstool Sports because the guy bet $120,000 and he wants his money back. Talk is cheap, baby. What do you guys think about that? In hockey, there's they only go lower body, upper body injury. They don't get specific on anything. Most quarterbacks absolutely don't want to have anybody talking about anything within 5 feet of their injury, so guys can go after it. So that's a questionable subject there, and certainly important to you guys where your money goes.
Unless you can prove it's gambling related, I don't care that much. You take your chances when you bet an over or you bet an under, no matter what. You take your chances on whether or not you're betting Cincinnati or whether or not you're betting Baltimore, no matter what. It's up to you to find out the most relevant information you can. And there were pictures of his wrist before. Yep. You could do what you want with it. I don't want to make it a bigger deal. I know a lot of people are. Maybe Cris disagrees with me.
What do you think, Cris?
Well, the one thing that I joined the spaces on X or Twitter this morning with Jeff Benson and some other people, and I couldn't shut it off because it was so stupid. I couldn't believe that it was just continuing, and it's these people that expect refunds off of their bets, and it's like, if you don't understand a card laid is a card played, stop betting. I mean, for gosh sakes, it's absolutely ridiculous. And if you're too stupid to understand that the places that will rebate you back are getting it back from you in every other single bet that you make because of the hold that they're taking and because of the crappy numbers they're offering and the crappy lines that they give you and the idiotic props that they sucker you into, I don't know what to tell you. It's like, it's absolutely idiotic. The Colin Cowherd actually this morning had a good discussion on it, and he took the side of, you're lucky you know anything, and he took it to like one extreme. He said the fact that anybody thinks that they know anything about any of this stuff is unbelievable. Do you know what your wife is thinking and who she's thinking about, and do your kids lie to you, and do you lie to your boss? You're never getting the truth about anything at any time anyway. So what's the point?
Okay, so here, to me, if you're in court, okay, and I'm the prosecutor, I hold up one thing, and that's all you got to do. The definition of the word gamble. That's it. Okay, the definition of the word gamble is you're taking a chance, baby. And if you lose or you win, good luck. That's it. It's a gamble, okay? You don't deserve to know anything, and certainly not everything. That's it.
I mean,
nothing else matters.
If I owned a team or if I was a head coach, I wouldn't want to tell you jack crap.
Of course.
So I don't know. No, it's absolutely infuriating that there is not consistency on it. There should be absolute consistency. The fact that you're betting NCAA football games and half the team all of a sudden is out, that's ridiculous. But, what has to be discussed is if you're going to have partnerships with gambling entities like the NFL has and the MLB has and the NBA has, well, then you got to kind of address the issue at some point and have some sort of uniformity. I mean, NBA, I am so sick and tired of the pop-ups I have to close all day long. If I have to see, Curry questionable, Kyrie questionable, LeBron questionable, Harden questionable, it's 5 times a day. Every single day. You never know who the hell's playing anywhere.
Yeah, the NBA is probably the worst right now, I would think, right? With the benching everybody because they got a sore finger or whatever.
I
Anyway.
think that if it somehow is tied to gambling, then it has to be out in the open. Otherwise, I don't care. Bet unders instead of bet overs, or
Right.
listen to Bill Belichick's injury report where he lists every single player on the team as questionable. And then, so you could go over the top that way. So I don't care. Just handicap the game.
Well, who's not questionable is Jake Browning for the rest of the year. What are your thoughts on that, boys? For Cincy.
Yeah, I haven't had enough time personally to process that.
Look who's there.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
me interviewing Jake when he was in Washington in a Pac-12 media day. And that was after he was offensive player of the year in his conference. So he was really damn good, but that was in college. I think he's more of a game manager. What do you think, Ron?
Well, I think the problem here is that Burrow throws to a spot. There are very few quarterbacks who understand how to throw to a spot anticipating somebody open. Browning isn't going to be able to do that. 90% of NFL quarterbacks can't do that. Cris and I had a discussion the other day about how many backup quarterbacks are playing this year in the NFL. Here's another one. And I'll get to that question a little bit later in the show when we talk about model quarterbacks and modeling. But, it's survival of the fittest. A lot of good players were going down last night in a Thursday game, a meaningful Thursday game.
Yep. Yeah, certainly Mark Andrews is a huge loss to Baltimore. I mean, that's like losing Travis Kelce for that team. It's a totally different ball game now from the rest of the season. That's the guy. That's the go-to guy for Lamar. So it's going to be really interesting to see who else can even come close to stepping up for that.
Well, he always has missing players. It's unbelievable. It's
yeah, but not your key player though.
No, I know that hurts. That hurts.
Yeah, that hurts a lot. No doubt about it. And by the way, as Cincinnati, when it comes to Jake Browning, I thought he actually looked pretty decent last night for a guy who never played. And he's very cerebral. I remember my conversation with him very well. He is one bright dude, sort of like a Joshua Dobbs that, whatever he might lack in talent, he might make up from an IQ standpoint. Obviously, that doesn't make you a great starting quarterback in the NFL, but there are some positives there. I'm just saying that for Bengals fans.
To comment, the players are using all kinds of braces. What Brady wore a brace for the final decade of his career.
It means nothing.
They're always wrapping wrists and elbows and knees and everything, and it's not uncommon for them to be doing that.
They have questionable ligaments every game, so it means nothing.
And Bertie brings up a big point. You're better off having a second bye at this point and not have any of these short week Thursday games. You can't necessarily blame the injuries on the short week, but it certainly can't help.
No. And in this case, Thursday had nothing to do with the key injuries. I mean, both guys went down the way they went down in a tackle, and it happened. That's it. I mean, welcome to football.
Yeah, recovery is just so much shorter. It's just terrible to go from a brutal Sunday game to a Thursday game, especially that these teams had to play a full 60 minutes on Sunday. And anytime you play a team like Baltimore, it's going to be a physical play. I hate the Thursday game format because it's not about player safety.
Yeah, exactly. Make it a Friday game even. I mean, even the one day would help, and do it like every other week or something, Yeah. But you got
can of worms is gone though.
No, I know it's all about the cash, and that's all that matters. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers told me about 6-7 years ago. He said we're going to end up going to 18, 19 games. That's just the way it's going to be. And the league's going to keep saying, we care about your health. We care about your safety. They don't give a damn. It's all about the cash, baby.
Well, even with a second bye week, there's no excuse for so many short week games with these teams. They could work it all out currently with the one bye and just figure it out where you don't have such discrepancies in rest and no rest.
Yep.
And guess what? We're about 6 days away from 3 games on Thanksgiving. So, and an extra one on Friday for that
Black
matter,
Friday
so.
game, Miami at the Jets.
But let's talk. Where do you want to go next?
Well, let's talk about the week itself. We got some fascinating games, and Pittsburgh at Cleveland is one that stands out to me already with DTR in there at quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson's out for the year. Your thoughts, Ron, on Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who loves to throw picks. That's one of his specialties, even though he can move around like most can't.
So I spent all this time talking to people and saying, don't bet overs on player props. And it would be surprising to me if DTR was under his 18.5 posted total for running props. I mean, I think this guy ran a lot at UCLA. He was in a running offense at UCLA. We have a 1-game sample size where he ran in the NFL this year as a rookie. The team he's playing is pretty much fundamentally sound in terms of how they're going to defend the pass and how they're going to bait you. Even though there are some weaknesses in Pittsburgh's defense, there's still TJ Watt and a few other players there. It's not going to be easy for them, and DTR is going to be a one-read quarterback. I think more important is what happens with Cleveland's defense. This game is all about, hey, Pittsburgh's offense isn't so great. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, but why not PJ Walker in this game? I think that's a question that I think a lot of people are asking. He's experienced, and especially against the Pittsburgh defense. I don't know.
I wouldn't use him. In this game. There is a incredibly low ceiling for PJ Walker.
No doubt.
Incredibly low ceiling, and you have somebody with one game tape where you don't know what he's going to come up with. So I'd rather have the uncertainty in terms of in this game than anything else. If you're going against a real passive defense, maybe I'd change my mind, but Pittsburgh's not a passive defense.
And Kenny Pickett hasn't thrown a touchdown in 3 of his last 4 games, and yet they just keep winning. It's really weird how they win, the Steelers, outgained in every game this year, and yet they're 6-3. Go figure. Right? And Pat
Chris.
Pat Freiermuth is supposed to be back too for the Steelers.
Well, I'm just looking for your prop everywhere, so don't mind me.
Where anything good there, Chris?
No. You can't find it? It was 18.5 everywhere yesterday.
I found a 19.5.
Okay, well, you're in the ballpark.
Yeah, but I'd rather see 17. Anyway, how about Bears at the Lions? Chris's Detroit Kitties looking fantastic. 8-2 could be the first time since 1962. Chris, are you confident?
I think that they can make things interesting. I think they made it pretty evident that they do not have a defense that would deserve to be Super Bowl worthy at this point. So
yeah, last 3 weeks have been bad.
They have the potential to back into that number 1 seed, especially if Philadelphia loses Monday night. I don't know whether that happens or not, but as Ron and I, we're looking. There are some teams that have some rough pathways at the end of the season. So, the pathway to get to the Super Bowl is harder for some teams because of their final 2 or 3 regular season games. And then you start to add that they'll never have home field along the way. And that could be the situation with Detroit, because if Detroit gets that 1 seed, then you could have, Dallas or San Francisco beating the crap out of each other and having to go to Detroit. And I would think, or Philadelphia and San Francisco beating each other up, I meant. And I don't think Detroit could beat San Francisco if they're healthy, but if they're not healthy and they're missing a few guys, they could.
Yeah. How about the Bears, though, right now? They're getting healthier, and they're actually playing decently. They're 3-3 in their last 6 games. I think it's the first time their O-line is going to be together the entire season for this game. And Justin Fields is back. Sometimes that's not necessarily a good thing, but you never know what you're going to get out of him. But this is a a futures kind of game, and certainly the next few weeks are for the Bears, because they've got two of the top 5 picks in the next draft, and they got some decisions to make. Ron, what do you think what they're going to do here if Justin Fields looks better than decent in the second half of the season?
Well, if they have their eye on one specific quarterback, I think they may part ways with Justin Fields. It's really an audition. I really think they're open-minded about it right now. But Justin Fields, he's got to feel some pressure now. Number one, he's got to stay healthy. The one given that we know, and I think a lot of smart people have figured this out, is that if you're a running quarterback in today's NFL, that skill set is A, very important, and B, guaranteed that you're going to have some sort of injury or 2 or 3 during your career because of the nature of the game. I know they're trying to take out a lot of tackling and you have to put a quarterback down real comfortably when he gets sacked and all that other stuff. But still, if you're a running quarterback and you're outside of the pocket, you're treated as a running back. And it's just Justin Fields has to stay healthy, and he has to show noticeable progress the rest of the season.
Yeah. But I agree with the comments that Chicago's been improving, especially on defense, because they've had their players back.
Yep.
And I have them in the top 7 or 8 for over the last 5 weeks of improvement on defense. And offensively, they've had their problems, obviously, with Fields out, but things could have gone a little bit differently for them. And now they have him back. And I think Fields presents a problem for the Detroit defense because they don't fare as well against mobile quarterbacks. So I don't look for a Detroit blowout this week at all. I think it's going to be a hard-fought divisional matchup where they don't like each other, and Chicago would love nothing else but to take a win out of there.
No doubt about that. By the way, we got a cut from Jared Goff from his last game. A real interesting thing here that I think fell through the cracks for a lot of people. I have no idea what happened. Jared Goff threw a touchdown pass last week. Was supposed to. No, I take it back. He was hoping to throw a touchdown pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had an unbelievable game. And this kid is really special. So what a future he has, the guy out of USC. But they had the wrong personnel on the field at the time. And instead, they quickly checked out of the play, and it was a surprise touchdown. Play that cut, Jared Goff here, Chris.
Every once in a while it happens where we end up with the wrong personnel on the field, and the certain play we called, we really can't run out of that personnel. And I knew it was wrong kind of when we broke the huddle. I should have realized it probably more in the huddle, but once we broke the huddle and got lined up, I realized it was wrong. And Ben in my head said, hey, get to the end of the run we ended up getting to, and we were laughing about it. You do all this planning through the week, and Monday to Saturday for what you want to do and make everything perfect, and then we kind of basically mess it up, and it's a 75-yard touchdown. But that's what it's a credit to
that great team. It's great stuff, and it's guys aren't always that open about what happened, and Jared doesn't care. I mean, it's like, hey, we scored a touchdown anyway. Who cares? But I just thought people get a kick out of hearing that one.
I'd like to add 2 points on that. That was a humorous part of the game. And what really says something about the camaraderie of the Lions and how they're playing for each other is Montgomery pulled himself out of the game and had Gibbs go in and get a touchdown. He said, hey, you go in there, you get the touchdown. And who the hell else is going to do something like that? I mean, that really says something. And a second thing that's really interesting, if any of you guys saw that Quarterbacks Netflix special, it was a lot of fun with Cousins and
yeah, I heard some good things about it, but I haven't seen it.
It was excellent. It was just found out that they're doing a receivers one, and they've had the mic and everything on with Amon St. Brown. So I think he's going to be mighty interesting for that special.
So the receivers one, they all said, just give me the damn ball. Is that pretty much the whole
Give me
show?
the damn mic. No.
That's the way they are for the most part.
Yeah.
Anyway, interesting matchup there, and an old black and blue division battle in the Bears and the Lions.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk quarterbacks. Are you
Okay.
prepared to talk quarterbacks now?
Always.
So, Cris, we had this conversation. It's a moot point now because Joe Burrow is out. But, how do you rectify the model that says Cincinnati's offense was bad the first 3 weeks with Joe Burrow when he couldn't move versus the 4 weeks when he could move? But the extra question to that, I'm going to name some quarterbacks here. You got Kenny Pickett, year 2. You've got Will Levis, 4 games of tape. Neil O'Connell, 2 games of tape with Vegas. You've got
Aiden O'Connell. You're thinking of Neil O'Donnell. That's
got it.
decades ago.
Thank you for that. Tommy DeVito, not Danny DeVito.
Exactly.
One game of
closer to Danny DeVito,
though. Tyler, what did you say it was? Bagent,
yeah.
Yeah, Bagent, 2 games or 3 games of tape.
Yeah.
Bryce Young, 1 year rookie tape. How I feel, here's my comment, and then I want you to comment on this, Cris. When you have rookie quarterbacks, don't you have to think there's going to be some progression during the year that if you take a look at Bryce Young's first 4 or 5 games, don't you think it should get a little bit better at this time of the season? And you have to maybe higher weight the latest 3 or 4 games as opposed to what you weighted the first 3 or 4 weeks. Do you do any differential weighting in terms of how you grade the first 4 games versus where we are now?
Oh, I think there's a lot of variables involved because you have different coaches doing different things. These quarterbacks come into the league nowadays. It's not like the old days where they're calling plays and they're doing this and they're doing that. They've got, earpieces in, they're being told what to do, what not to do. And that's a process because the coaches have to determine how they're going to put these guys in spots that make them successful and succeed. And sometimes you're going to have coaches that are stubborn and want them to keep on doing some things this way. You've got injury situations that affect the whole thing. So I don't think you can really cookie cutter the evaluation. I think you have to look at each one separately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think my point on that was I don't want to use the first 3 weeks of data for teams or quarterbacks. For example, you have Justin Fields who played a few games, and then you have this other guy who's played a few games. And when you go back to Justin Fields, I'd rather delete the offensive sample size for quarterback play in the model and keep everything else. I know that requires extra work and it requires fine tuning, or you could just do the eye test and say the numbers say this, but I understand that it's Justin Fields now instead of this guy, or it's Ryan Tannehill instead of this guy. If you have differing quarterback weights per team, I think there's something you have to do in order to model the next game.
I think it stresses the word trust, which I always talk about is everything in life. Every little thing we do in life is all about trusting. And if you trust your eyes and know what you see and totally trust your evaluation of quarterbacks, that's more important than some of the numbers. Because if you know who that guy is in your mind, that's going to be a difference. That's whether you're interested or not from certainly a gambling standpoint.
I think you get into real situations of what you want to show, of capabilities and stuff. Look at Miami coming out of the bye this week. They can beat the crap out of that team, and they probably have some new plays in the lineup, but they could come out this week very vanilla, just, get the win for all we know, because they want to save some of the stuff that they're working on, against better teams later on. They don't want to put what they're doing on film for evaluation. So,
right.
And that could be this case with quarterbacks too, is, hey, I know, this guy can do this, but we're going to have him doing this because we already know the season's down the drain or this is the circumstance.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of quarterbacks, if we don't mention CJ Stroud with a megaphone, if people even know what that is anymore, he's just been unbelievable. And now the Cincinnati falling into the trash can immediately. They're done. That opens up a true possibility even more for Houston to not probably, but possibly make the playoffs. They've got an easy schedule, and you would think there is no such thing as an easy schedule because they're Houston, but they're just so much better than we expected. We got to look at that realistically right now.
Yeah.
In the AFC.
I mean, Houston's in the mix. They're in the mix. There's no question about that. The schedule doesn't get any tougher pretty much. You know,
No,
Jacksonville has, there's a battle now. It's not a one-team race like it could have been perceived as 3 weeks ago.
And by the way, and we also haven't mentioned, I don't think at all, the first-year offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick of the Texans. He has been really, really big for what they're doing. And he's got a relationship with Stroud that's been fantastic. So remember that name, Bobby Slowick. His dad, Bob Slowick, was a longtime assistant in the league forever. And his kid, he could be something special.
I wrote about certain coordinators that have done bang-up jobs in this Tuesday article, and he was front and center in it.
Oh, good. Excellent. So we're on the same page, literally.
We're on the same page.
All right. And how about Miami? Off a bye, off the loss in Germany. Do they just take care of biz and blow out the Raiders, or is that a ball game?
I think they blow them out, but I don't think.
Yeah.
But I think they blow them out. I don't know how they don't.
So a new coach high is over for the Raiders, 2-0 and goodbye.
Yeah. Just to paraphrase what we talked about on Tuesday with this game, if you look at pure power ratings, there's literally no way you could get to the number that's out there.
Really?
That the Raiders should not be underdog this much. If you look at matchup indicators, the bye week, if you look at a negative team trend and situation that the Raiders face, it's a horrible situation for the Raiders. So you have to balance the two.
Okay. So is it solid 13 pretty much?
Yeah, it's actually 13.5. I thought I saw 14s pop up too.
Wow. So
yeah.
you think it could go to 14 then?
Yeah, Miami's getting some injured players back, and Ramsey, for example, he played, I think, once, but now he's had an extra bye week. They're getting their electric rookie running back, and in space, he's going to be pretty strong. If you don't get to Tua, he's going to carve you up. It's a matchup nightmare for Vegas.
All right. What about let's go to the late games. Tampa Bay at San Francisco. Looks like Mike Evans is probably going to go full practice the last few days. So that's good news for the Bucs. 49ers, hey, McCaffrey stinks. He even said it. I stink. I didn't score a touchdown. So there's something wrong with him. What can I tell you? He'll probably score 3 this week. And good news for Trent Williams. He's reasonably healthy, full practice. So that's huge for the Niners. And let's go Buffalo and the Jets, because we got some sound, a little bit to talk about here with the Bills. It was just such a weird. I mean, we're getting sort of tired of the same old story with the Bills. Like, will the real Buffalo Bills please stand up? Maybe this is the real Buffalo Bills. I don't know. The defense has been disappointing, no doubt. And Josh Allen has been throwing the ball away too many times. There is something to, and I truly believe this. He has had, and it's been a bunch of these plays where his interceptions have been more like punts and have not totally killed the team, So you have to, those are very situational, not all of them. And he's thrown some bad passes, but he's also thrown a handful of them that are no big deal. Nobody likes to turn the ball over, but they can be really over evaluated. Let's put it that way. That he's throwing the ball just awful. So, your guys' thoughts on that? And then obviously new offensive coordinator this week.
Oh, I agree with that. I've been involved in some of the Bills games, and I've had that reaction of, "Well, that's a punt."
Right, exactly.
And in a lot of those situations, I'm surprised that the receivers don't drop the ball, or the cornerbacks. I don't want to get too far off topic,
Right.
But I cannot believe in today's day and age how often it is every single week, without exception, you see people intercept the ball out of the end zone and they bring it out to the 10-yard line or something. Or, similar types of things, they should be dropped. They should know whether they want the interception or not. And they go ahead and intercept the ball in a horrible situation that they should have known before the play started to just bat the ball down. They don't want the ball,
Right.
at the 5-yard line.
So here we are. The Bills are on a short week. We got a couple of cuts from Josh Allen, Chris. The first one basically just showing his frustration overall.
Ooh. Okay. Hopefully
We'll find that, one, in this locker room, two, the fact that we're 5-5 and our backs are against the wall. The clock's ticking on what we can do this season, and it starts this Sunday to try to turn this thing around. It's no secret in terms of how many wins you probably need to get to the playoffs, and we don't got much more wiggle room. So we understand that, but again, we can't focus on the next week or the week after that, or inevitably we can't focus on the end of the season. We got to focus on the here and now, and that's Sunday against a team that's already beat us once this season, a team that offensively we didn't play very well. I didn't play very well. So again, we're looking forward to get out there and playing Buffalo Bills football, the football that we know we can play. And I got a lot of faith in the guys in this room. I got a lot of faith in Joe. I got a lot of faith in myself. So we got to go out there and put together our best ball. I find
And
that,
by the way, the Joe he was talking about there is the new OC, Joe Brady, who's been around. He's been like an assistant and part of the whole thing for the last few years. So it's not a totally new voice or a new face. It's not a giant transition, but it's going to be a little bit different. And Josh talked about Brady and what he means to this team.
he's got a lot of juice to him. He former ball player himself. I think that he can relate with a lot of the guys. Obviously, he's a fairly younger guy, but again, a guy that's been around the league. He's been an offensive coordinator. He's in the league. He's been a national championship caller at the college level. So again, there's a lot of faith in him. He's been around a lot of football. He's learned under a lot of really good coaches, and we're going to have to utilize his knowledge going forward.
Year 2 years with him, what do you think?
Okay, they were just going to ask one other question.
How is he?
Go ahead.
Stepping on the field and having the reps.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got a lot of juice to him. He former ball player himself. I think that he can relate with a lot of the guys. Obviously, he's a fairly younger guy, but again, a guy that's been around the league. He's been an offensive coordinator. He's in the league. He's been a national championship caller at the college level. So again, there's a lot of faith in him. He's
There's
been
a
around.
question after that leads into. Got issues with that?
Yeah,
play
the
the
15-yard,
play the Mitch Morse. He's the center for the Bills, who I've spoken to in the past. He's a real, honest, straightforward. He doesn't BS anybody, and he tells it like it is. Mitch Morse.
No, it's not ideal. I think now is going to be the real test for this team. Not so much on Sundays, but how we stick together through this on the week. Look at it objectively, and then I think the best teams when the pressure's at its highest, and when everything seems to be crumbling, is when it's when it's not, and you come together closer. It's like breaking a bone, right? Like when you heal it, it becomes stronger. So for us, that's what we got to do, and very confident in this team to do that. It's not going to be easy, but like Josh said, the clock is ticking, and we just have to take this right now one day at a time, but at the same time look at everything objectively. Well, it's not ideal.
There you go. So that's Mitch Morrison. I like the way he handled that, because he basically said, we're not giving up, but we also know it's not going to be easy. And let's face it, they do have enough personnel to turn this thing around. Whether or not it's good enough at this point, who the hell knows? They got to take care of the football. More chunk plays, guys. More chunk plays under Joe Brady. That's what I expect.
Two comments to what we just played.
Okay.
One is it was all offensive. And the bottom line is Buffalo's defense is not very good this year. And how come? I know it's an offensive driven league and the comments are all offensively driven, but Buffalo has defensive issues. Now, some of it's due to injury, but it's tough. Everybody has injuries, and they've played without some of these guys for weeks now. The second thing is, when I heard the quarterback speak, I didn't hear any confidence. I heard kind of, oh, this is the way it is, kind of, what's the right word I'm searching for? He's accepted this. And there's no fight back. It was such a low key response. I didn't like it at all.
Okay, well, I'm going to go on the side of Josh Allen here a little bit, because you have to understand when they're in a media scrum, and in this case, it's the weekly quarterback chat, right?
Yeah.
They don't always. A lot of times it's, did they just come off the field? There's a lot of variables in that, and so I don't get caught up in, how he sounded too much, because there's so many different reasons that could be why he sounded like that. To me, it's just chatter. It doesn't mean that much anyway. But I don't know. I mean, you expect them to be rah-rah?
No.
I know
understand what you're saying from if it was a 1 week occurrence, but this is 4 straight weeks of that same tone where he just resolved. He just says, well, this is the way it is. I wish I could eliminate the turnovers. He's just not coming. It's just not a positive vibe for me.
Okay, well, what would you have truthfully expected him to say, considering that they're playing like crap right now? They're 5-5 and 1 foot in the toilet as far as the season's concerned. What do you expect?
Want better tone in his voice. I want him to say, we are going to get it resolved. I want him to put his hand down and say, I understand this. We know it. We're working through it. We're going, we have some ideas that we're going to brainstorm around the table. I want solutions, not, oh, I'm sorry, this is happening kind of talk.
Well, I think if you saw his face, it wasn't as bad as his mouth. But I get where you're coming from. But I think if he said that and he was totally enthusiastic, I think it'd be absolutely fake too.
He's depressed because he and his girlfriend broke up. So he's got.
Is that true? I'm not following that.
But what I was surprised is, if you listen to Greg Cosell this week, he painstakingly said, in a way where he didn't want to be insulting to Buffalo. He covered his tracks, but his point was, this offense is no good. They don't have it. They
don't have playmakers enough outside of Diggs.
He said this offense is no good, and that's a strong comment from Greg Switzerland Cosell.
I will agree with what Cosell said. Ted, they have playmakers. They're just not utilizing them. Birdie said something about McDermott. He puts his quarterbacks in harm's way. Not just Josh Allen, but the quarterbacks before him. It's partly Josh Allen trying to force things, but it's also some of the play calling and a lot of the play calling is heavy against the run, where they forget that they have Cook in the backfield, and Cook has a tremendous yards per carry average. He has the ability to take a pass, unlike a lot of other running backs, and turn it into a long gainer. They have the rookie Kincaid, who functions as both a hybrid tight end and another outlet at wide receiver. Not every team has a Diggs at wide receiver. They have Gabe Davis, who absolutely stretches the field, 20 yards per reception type guy. They have the ingredients there. They're just not play calling effectively to get it all going.
Okay, well, I want to talk about coaches more maybe next week, but is McDermott extremely on the hot seat here?
He's not on the hot seat at all.
Why not?
Because this is his first year where you're talking about him having a potential sub 500 record in a relatively tough AFC. How could you put him on the hot seat for 4 weeks of problems?
Well, is he on the hot seat if they end up under 500?
Not to me.
Okay. because you're the one who just said McDermott is part of the problem here from an offensive standpoint, something we've talked about in the past, another defensive guy running the show, right? So now he's got to fire Ken Dorsey to bring in another guy. That's part of the issue here, and it's not going away.
Okay, I agree with you that McDermott's not a great coach, but it's just the perception with the GM and how many good things they've done and the coach and how they work well together.
No, I get it.
Whether or not I would hire him is irrelevant at this point. He's just not on the hot seat, in my opinion.
Okay,
I would say he's on the warm seat, though.
Okay.
Okay.
And
well,
I want to,
that's not a good seat to be on sometimes.
No.
I would like to do more coaches and who's coach of the year stuff next week, because I took a look at the list of the last several coaches of the year, and most of them are so forgettable it's not even funny. So it means absolutely nothing. Just ask Brian Daboll, coach of the year.
We had that teed up as possibility for this week, but I'm happy to postpone it for next week. There's some interesting names on the top 6.
I think when we have a little more time to totally go over that.
Okay.
And then I'm wondering about the Rams Seahawks this week. I guess Stafford's going to go, right? But now they got Carson Wentz in the bullpen waiting off a bye. So interesting little pickup there. The question is Carson Wentz pissed off that he didn't wait long enough to get signed by Minnesota? But I guess the Minnesota's happy right now.
I like that.
Nah, it's all a chemistry issue, what you want to do and whatnot. The Rams feel they're in the wild card chase. And you know something? They are, because the 7th seed in the NFC is completely up for grabs. Seattle's murderous schedule the next 4 weeks. And remember, if Seattle loses this game, they're 0-2 against the Rams.
Right. But if the Rams lose this game, they're not in the race anymore. They're 3-7. They're done.
Probably not, unless Seattle if Seattle wins this game, it remains Seattle's playoff spot to lose.
Exactly.
And the question is,
Geno. That's the question.
It's a young team still. They make mistakes every once in a while. The offensive line's incomplete. There's rookies in the secondary. They're doing what they can. When they put it all together, they're a definitely top 7 NFC team, because there aren't 7 top NFC teams.
No, but they are way ahead of schedule than any of us ever expected Seattle to be at this stage. From going back to last year, we had no thoughts of them being even in this discussion. And here they are once again, more consistent than we expected.
I feel both of these teams have done exactly what we said, or at least what we expected them to do at the start of the season. We liked the Rams out of the gate, and sure enough, they came out firing. But we also said Stafford's going to break down, and the Rams don't have the depth. They were a potential Costco at the trade deadline. That didn't happen, but they have been declining also. Their defense is declining. I believe Stafford has not thrown more than 1 touchdown pass in a game that Kupp has played in. Or is that since the first game when they played Seattle? It's one of the two.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of holes in the Rams' outlook, in my opinion. But Seattle absolutely has been sliding, and it's noticeable. Kind of alarming if you supported them, because they were rated highly for the first quarter of the season, and then you just see that there's just a decline, and it's not a matter of wins and losses. It's a matter of all over performance statistically that they're sliding. So I'm very interested to see what happens in this game. I think Seattle's still in a better position to win, but it's a home game with that huge Rams contingency there.
Right.
And it's all timing too. Great timing for the bye for the Rams. I just think this fits perfectly for them. Sunday night game, Minnesota at Denver. Everybody's is on the Pastronauts bandwagon. Josh Dobbs. I love that nickname. Given to him by the people at NASA. He is a rocket scientist, and now he's a hell of a quarterback, and he's going to have to be if Minnesota's going to keep this going. Everybody's got the tape now on Josh Dobbs, so he's not going to surprise anybody anymore. They've won 5 straight. Minnesota, they haven't done this since the Purple People Eater days. So go figure, right?
Well, it's interesting to see that everybody thought their defense was going to be complete garbage, and the defense has been improving.
Yep.
And they've done okay with the offense that they have. I think they've got about a 40% shot of getting Jefferson in this week. And that's a darn good game because Denver, off back-to-back wins with Kansas City and Buffalo, they're putting it together. So both of those teams are play-on teams. So it'll be interesting to see where they go from there. Minnesota, they've won 6 out of 7 games. They haven't lost a game by more than 7 points. And as Ron will tell them about the first 3 games of the season.
Yeah.
And this is something, again, I'm going to tease out because we're going to have talk about turnover tidbits a little bit later. But Minnesota was -3 in turnovers week 1, gave away the game. -3 turnovers in week 2, gave away the game, got to a -9 ratio in turnovers. So if you knew if they just turned around random turnover luck and they were fumbling, you were talking about Buffalo when they committed their turnovers. Well, Minnesota was night and day different. They were they were turning it over in the red zone. And we say 3.5 points per turnover, but in Minnesota's case, it might have been worth a little bit more. Even without Cousins, once they stopped turning it over and once they started to buy into Flores' defensive scheme as the new defensive coordinator, they're a different team.
Yeah, no doubt about it. By the way, we got a cut from Joshua Dobbs talking about having a full week, because remember, he was there for 10 minutes and played in a game and had to come into the game and help them win it. Now he had a full week this past week and what that meant to him. Go for it, Cris.
Stepping on the field and having the reps where you're not the first time throwing to the receivers and working with the O-line mid-game allowed it to be a lot more comfortable out there on the field. And so just to have the week of preparation to be able to get the offense under my belt, get the game plan under my belt was awesome. And so there's room for improvement, man, but I think it's exciting to be able to do what we did out there and be able to go back and look at the film and say, we did leave some meat on the bone. And so we'll continue growing and improving. I'll continue to find ways to continue to grow in my role and be better, man, because, with the playmakers we have, with the mindset that we have, with the guys stepping up, making plays, I think we definitely have a lot of potential moving forward.
That is Joshua Dobbs right there. And I think it's better than a 40% chance Justin Jefferson's back this week. I think, I'm not going to put a number on it, but I think it's very possible he could come back for this Monday nighter or Sunday nighter. I mean,
he's listed questionable, which generally means you have a 75% chance of playing.
Right. Exactly.
They did say that they were going to not treat him typically like other players. They don't want to bring him back until he's 100%. They don't want to bring him back at 80, 85. So Interesting thing for them to say, but that could just be a smokescreen.
Could be. And then there's that Monday nighter, the Super Bowl rematch. I hate that term because that was last year and it's old news now. But anyway, it's not a Super Bowl rematch in this game. It is a standalone game, which makes it very interesting, and it should be a lot of fun. Both teams off of buys, which is really interesting right there. So there's no excuses for anybody except for if Taylor Swift trips at midfield or something. I guess that's the only thing that could happen in this game.
Yeah, a lot of people were making big deal about, Kelsey's going to have a big game because Taylor Swift is there and so on and so forth. Maybe not, but I think we got to spend our time. We know who Mahomes is. We know who Mahomes is in the spotlight and all that. We should spend our time talking about what Philly brings to the table in this game. Can they stop Mahomes? How's the defense looking? How's the run pass balance looking? So, Cris, what do your numbers tell you about the Philadelphia defense?
The Philadelphia defense, I have them a couple of slots lower than Kansas City.
Okay.
And
overall, where in the league? About
mid-range, like 13, 14, I think.
Okay, so mid-pack, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would have them about 11th.
And then I've got their offense, 5, 6, or 6 notches above Kansas City's offense, which makes sense.
Yep. And I want to ask Ron about Rashee Rice. We've talked
Okay.
about him. Is it time for him to become the Chiefs version of Jerry Rice?
I think that's going a little too far, but Rashid Rice is already fine. When they talk about how the Kansas City receivers are letting him down, they're not talking about Rice.
Exactly.
You could tell it in the prop market because you've seen his numbers steadily rise. This guy is ready. He has earned the trust of Pat Mahomes. Now he has an extra week to earn that trust. Philadelphia's pass defense is not as good as it needs to be in this particular game. They're good at shortening the field. They're good at maybe preventing red zone touchdowns. They're good at stopping the run. It's going to be a little bit harder for Pacheco to run in this game, and he's a hard-nosed runner. I mean, that's strength against strength when he runs the ball in this particular game. I think Kansas City is better suited to get big plays than small plays in this game. What they do in the red zone is going to be tough.
How do they get their big plays?
Rice is a way of getting their big play. You know, if they go one-on-one with Kelsey, that's a problem in the big play. But once they get inside the 25-yard line and the field is smaller, I think that's to Philly's advantage. That's just a personal opinion in this game. That'll be tougher to score in the red zone for Kansas City.
Well, you use that word trust again. And the issue to me with Mahomes and his offense is he only trusts two guys. The rest of them he doesn't trust. And they're just guys. And it's not the same team as it was before when they had the breakaway guys. So that's continuing to evolve every single week. Whether it becomes Super Bowl championship capable is still to be determined. But there's a trust factor there with Mahomes with the other guys outside of Rice has now earned his trust. And we don't even have to talk about Kelsey.
But it's going to be interesting because we know Andy Reid loves these extra weeks. And there's going to be new things in the playbook. There's definitely going to be new things. How much weight do you give to the fact that Philadelphia, I don't think I'm wrong about this, but if you look back at the Super Bowl, wouldn't you say Philadelphia slightly outplayed Kansas City in last year's?
Absolutely. Jalen Hurts was the MVP for sure. For sure. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't.
You know, there's a lot of Kansas City love in this game. I'm probably going to be on the Philadelphia side in this game at 3 or more, just because I think they stack up pretty well in this game.
Is it going to be 3? Is it been 2.5, or is it? Have they gotten to 3?
No, it's bounced off of that 3 a couple of times. It seems to not last very long. When it does.
3 at the best right now.
So if it's a 3 and you like the dog, you just take it immediately, right? Don't waste any time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be the bet of the century, bet of the year.
No.
It's a lovely watchable game that I won't be watching because it's my wife's birthday. So I hope you enjoy the game.
I hope she enjoys her birthday. Dallas Goedert, forearm, did not practice, so I'm assuming he's probably not going to go for this game, and that doesn't help Philly's cause.
I kind of agree with Hector here. He beat me to the punch. I don't feel like Reed's going to put on any display of anything, too inventive. I think he wants to hold some stuff back.
I totally disagree.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, it's week 11.
I would disagree. I would disagree too, because that's presumptuous to think that they're automatically going to meet in the Super Bowl.
For the Super Bowl?
Well, no, but it puts plays. They've got a lot of tough matchups. This is where Kansas City's schedule gets tough.
Kansas City, yeah, that's true. But Kansas City's offense is totally a work in progress. There's no reason to hold anything back. They have got to start building and confidence they need to build from the entire squad, saying we're as close as our defense is. Mahomes has mentioned it almost every week. Thank you, defense. You've saved our asses again.
This is something, though, that Cris and Cris has already talked about, and we've talked about privately, and we're going to bring up with Kansas City throughout December. It's a brutal schedule with a terrible rest differential for Kansas City. It's so important that they get the number 1 seed. Otherwise, I don't think they're going to advance to the Super Bowl. It's just too tough. tough game after tough game with limited rest and so on and so forth, because the NFL wants to keep scheduling Kansas City in prime time. So every game's important. They can't afford to lose this game. And Philadelphia might feel the same way. Maybe they end up losing and still getting the number 1 seed because it's the NFC, but Detroit's breathing down their throat. It's not a horrendous divisional challenge for Detroit, in my opinion, even though they have Minnesota 2 of the last 3 weeks. And Philly probably still has to worry more about Dallas than the rest of the league.
I have a simple observation. I don't know whether it means anything or not, but boy, I remember getting just sick and tired of hearing about the Eagles this, Eagles that, Eagles this. Are the Eagles like flying completely under the radar? They're just keeping their heads down, keeping their mouths shut, just going about business, and it just seems like they just disappeared. You never even hear about them anymore.
Well, there's no doubt at 8-1, they're probably the least talk about 8-1 team ever when you think about it, right? But look, I think some of that has to do with maybe who they've beaten and how they've beaten them. But without San Francisco, who else would we be talking about at this stage of the year in that conference, right? So I am a little surprised we're not talking more about Philly, but they have just sort of won games in a weird way, and it's getting old that we've talked about too many times. A new offensive and new defensive coordinators. It's now the middle of the season. That should be old news by now, and whatever they're going to be in the next few weeks.
The narrative will change if they win on Monday night. They'll be talked about tremendously. Yeah, so enjoy your under the radar time, because it may come to a close after Monday.
Yeah, speaking of under, I do like the under in that game. What do you guys think?
What's the number?
Ball control, long drives.
What's the number?
45.5 in that area.
Yeah, it's down to 45.5 now.
I don't think it is. There supposed to be any weather factor at all on Monday night?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Because it could be snowing or it could be 68 degrees. I have no idea. I didn't look. KC this time of the year, you never know. But if weather is not a factor, I would lean towards the U's, but I think that's a fair number.
Yeah, I'm not particularly excited one way or another about that.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, so next week we got a Black Friday game going against us. Who's going to get the better ratings?
Wait a minute. We didn't talk about Ron's Taylor Swift modeling thing. How did that thing go?
The what? Did I miss?
Yeah, I took some good photos. Everything went fine. No, I do have one other topic that I want to. It was really about the quarterback situation there, and we touched upon it as far as how do you model quarterbacks that when you have 22 teams that have used multiple quarterbacks this year. How do you model one way versus another? I think we covered that. But I want to talk about something that I think is very important to handicapping. So anybody who listens or watches, maybe you'll pick up something, maybe you'll disagree with me. But this has to do with turnover regression. Cincinnati's turnover ratio coming into last night, I didn't follow it, was plus 10.
Yeah.
I could tell you for a fact that was going to regress even with Joe Burrow as quarterback, because you just can't maintain that +1 per game. So you were getting value. You're starting to get value going against a Cincinnati team that is not going to plus 10 means they're 35 points better than what they should be. Whatever they show, they're 35 points better. Same with Pittsburgh. I know it's been smoke and mirrors. I know, but it's not all smoke and mirrors. It's TJ Watt, it's Mike Tomlin, and so on. But it's still 35 points that they were gifted because they're plus 10 in turnover ratio.
And they're both under. They're both minus 26 and minus 24 as it is. So add that to the minus.
Absolutely. And that's a fantastic point, because they're really 60 points worse at equal turnovers right now. And that's a point that if you go into a game, now sometimes you go in a game and you say, oh, they're playing a quarterback, Jordan Love, that's going to turn the ball over. That's what happened last week. So you can't reuse that model. But if you're thinking they're going into a game against a quarterback or against a passive defense, like in Atlanta or like in Arizona or something that's not going to force turnovers, then you have to change the narrative in that way. If you think that they're going against a Cleveland team that is going to force turnovers, then Pittsburgh has to be downgraded because of their turnover ratio. The Chargers are +8 in turnover ratio. Does that continue or does that not continue? Maybe they're a little overvalued. Tampa Bay is +8 in turnover ratio. I admire what Baker Mayfield has put together this. I think he's just been quietly under the radar as doing a good to very good job.
Absolutely.
But that turnover ratio has hit its ceiling, in my opinion. I really think that turnover ratio has hit its ceiling. And two more before you counterpunch me on this. There are 2 turnover ratios that I do not think you can use regression on. And that's the Bears at -9. I still think they're going to be turnover prone. And the Raiders at -7. I still think they're going to be turnover prone. Does it get worse? Maybe not. But I don't think you can expect Chicago to go from -9 to 0 like Minnesota. Minnesota was a veteran team, well-coached defense, had Kirk Cousins at the time and so on. There's no way they were going to continue -9, but I would not advocate that Chicago and Vegas will change their turnover ratio.
Okay. Well, you mentioned the Chargers. Your thoughts on them, the turnover ratio. I mean, does that even tell you they're already a game under 500? All right. And yet they're on the positive side of that. What does that tell you about this team and where they potentially, forget the word potential, where they should be at this stage? And if they lose this game at Green Bay, you're 2 under 500. You're done for the year already. It's over. They lose this game. So it might be over anyway, but still, I mean, they got a chance if they go on a roll. Yeah, I mean, you already know what I think about their coaching.
Yeah. Well, it just magnifies that every bad decision they make, there's just a razor thin line because you can't automatically count on turnover ratios. So you have to count on winning other battles to compensate for regression and turnover ratio. It just magnifies coaching. It magnifies key quarterback play. It magnifies, getting to the quarterback and as opposed to not getting to the quarterback in the sack ratio. You have to do something extra. And if the stat sheet and the matchup analysis show that you can't do that, then there's value to go against that kind of team.
Okay. And the Chargers defense has been an unbelievable disappointment this year. I mean, they really have. And everybody keeps mentioning Brandon Staley as a guru, whatever you want to call it, a defensive guru. Brandon Staley is an ex-quarterback, okay, who became a defensive coordinator. I don't know about defensive guru, this, that, or whatever. I mean, you got to know something about defense if you're a quarterback, obviously. Does that make you a guru? Good luck with that. But I don't know what the hell he is, but I know he's not strong at a whole lot of things. He's sort of like me. I know a little bit about everything and a lot about nothing. Write that down, Cris.
Cris, any thoughts about regression and turnovers or anything we talked about?
I'm pissed off at myself for not actually having that front and center. It's part of it's within my model, but I really should be glancing at that separately, at least as a reference point. Just to know it, if that makes any sense. Because what you said at the top of this is exactly right. There was no way possible, no matter who was in, that Cincinnati's doesn't have turnover regression. Yep. And it's going to go both ways.
Yeah, I think in some ways it's given away the farm to discuss turnover regression or part of the farm because it's still dependent on matchup analysis. But it really makes a difference, not only game to game, but season to season. Once you have a half a season's worth of information, it's not random anymore.
Yeah. One more thing on the game matchups. We didn't talk about Dallas, Carolina, probably for 1,000 good reasons. But Dallas is 2-3 on the road this year. I'd be interested to see if they don't cover in this game and look reasonably dominant, I think it's the same old story with them. Now, they might win by 30, and that doesn't matter. But there's no excuses in this game. This matchup, you should be able to show up, play hard, win going away, and get the hell out of town. And if it's a close game, I think it's the same old story for the Cowboys.
I'm anticipating a close game. I'm anticipating the opposite. They have a Thursday game on deck.
Okay.
They just came off of a game where they set starters when they could. I think they want to get in and out of this game healthy. Probably elongate the game, run clock. They don't care. They just want the win, and they don't need the style points. They just need the health. So I don't know. Carolina it's not going to be a situation where you're going to be able to put your feet on their neck with Carolina at this point. So I do look for a close game.
Okay.
I'm glad you went first on this one. Basically, this is a horrible scheduling spot for Dallas. Sandwiched between two divisional games.
Yep.
Carolina with extra rest. Carolina, is probably going to use that. I mean, I know they're switching court, who calls the plays again and all that stuff and so on. But I don't think we get Dallas's best effort. And if we do get Dallas's best effort, it's more of indictment of Carolina not using their time and Frank Reich than anything else, because they should be able to do enough things to keep this game within reason.
Makes sense. All right, boys. Anything else exciting to bring up?
That's all I got. Interesting week. I'm just going to digest all the different variables and move forward.
Digest. That's a good word the week before Thanksgiving.
Cris is cooking us a big turkey, and we're all going to be in good shape.
Really? What time do we show up, Cris?
No, I am the big turkey.
That makes me the little turkey.
I'm optimistic for a good weekend. I think the tide is kind of turning, and there's a better flow going on that just seems to be coming around the bend, so to speak. And we'll see. We'll see. We'll be back on Tuesday again. Prima Donna Ron's schedule. Are you going to be okay at noon, 12:30? What's going to be good for you next Tuesday?
I believe 12:13 is the anticipated time. Got to keep people guessing.
And by the way, our Black Friday show, you can join us for half price, is what I heard. Is that true?
Yeah.
That's a good one. I didn't think about that. All right. Cheers, everybody.
Later. Good show, guys.
Good luck, everybody.